Boxing truth here. Gary Russell Jr. and a lot of PBC fighters are a fucking joke. One of the biggest laughing stocks in boxing. As these guys, Gary Russell, just don't get it. They feel they deserve big purses for not doing much, for only fighting once a year, not fighting anyone half decent. But this is what happens when you overpay fighters like Al Heyman has been doing to his clients ever since the PBC came out last year. As a result, these guys are spoiled. They want everything handed to them. They don't want to work for those big paydays, or continue to build their fan bases, or fight anyone decent, or fight the names that can get them to another stratosphere. They feel if they fight once a year and fight mostly nobodies or hand-picked opponents, their market value and the purse is going to magically jump. That's not how it works. You need momentum in boxing. You need to build your fan bases. You need to be active. You need to be on platforms where you have a lot of exposure. You need to fight the right opponents. Or you need to have a type of style, a type of personality to get the fans intrigue. And in the case of Gary Russell, he doesn't do any of that. He doesn't do shit. He fights once a year, fights mostly nobodies. The majority, about 95% of his opponents are announced about 2 to 3 weeks out, which pretty much guarantees he's fighting a nobody. He's going to fight a guy who's going to come to lay down, not even going to provide much resistance. I mean, Russell Jr. has been privileged, has been given 8-round showcases even on HBO when HBO was Heymanized. This guy's a joke. He feels like his purse is going to automatically jump if he just sits out and fights once a year and doesn't fight anyone decent. He fought a club fighter this past April for $800,000 when he fought Patrick Heinlein, an unworthy challenger for his belt. And Gary Russell hasn't done shit. He's fought once in the past 18 months, and he thinks his purse is going to automatically jump up. That's not how it works in boxing. You need momentum. You need to put asses in the seats. You need to put eyeballs on TVs. You need to be more active. You need to fight the type of opponents that can get you to a better stratosphere. If you want bigger purses, you need to fight more riskier fights. You can't fight low-risk opponents and expect the highest of rewards. You want the big money fights, you gotta roll the dice. You gotta unify. You gotta fight name opponents. Otherwise, those purses are not gonna come. This is not 2015 no more. Those days of getting $1 million for showcases are over. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it was pretty nice for a lot of those guys to fight hand-picked guys and no-hopers for 7 figures, fight strippers even for 7 figures. But that time has come and gone. Now it's time to get back to reality and realize that you're worth what you're worth because of how much you generate at the gate, how much viewership that you get, and that's how it is. I mean, these guys are a joke, man. A lot of these guys are clowns. Gary Russell's a clown. I mean, just look at his resume before the Lomachenko fight. Pretty much proving that Al Heyman has no idea how to build a fighter, has no idea how to develop talent, and doesn't have a clue on how to create a superstar. Just look at his track record. The guy hasn't done shit with his stable. None of those guys are even close to sniffing and headlining their own pay-per-views. And why is that? A lot of people hit on Golovkin because he's promoted right, because he gets exposure, because he fights 3 times a year, because he knocks people the fuck out, and he tries to get the biggest fights out there, and he fights from coast to coast, even is willing to go across the pond in order to get the biggest lucrative fights. But yet he gets hated on because he gets promoted right. But these guys, they fight once a year, most of them. They don't fight anybody good. And then they complain about why they're not bigger stars. And why you think that is? Why don't you look around who's handling your career? Why don't you look at your advisor? Why is he not promoting you right? Why is he not keeping you active despite all these platforms that he has? How come he's no longer able to overpay you guys for showcases? And now you guys are acting like everything's all good and dandy, but it's not. Behind the scenes, y'all bitching and complaining that y'all not getting the dates and y'all not getting the purses that y'all once were getting. And Gary Russell, it's just, he's everything that's wrong with boxing right now. This guy doesn't want to fight because he's not satisfied with the financial packages he's getting. Well, if you're not going to fight, you're going to be out of sight, out of mind, and your purses are not going to magically jump up. And besides, the WBC has already ordered you to fight your mandatory challenger in Oscar Escandon. So do you really expect a huge amount of money to be just thrown at you to fight a no-name guy like Escandon? He's your mandatory, but it is what it is. If you're not going to fight him, you're possibly going to get stripped. And no network right now, not even Showtime, is going to be throwing a lot of money for that fight. I mean, what type of viewership is Showtime going to get for putting that fight on? I can't wait till somebody chin checks Gary Russell Jr. Just can't be a fan of this guy. He's a freaking clown. Doesn't do anything, hasn't done anything in his career to suggest that he deserves these high, extraordinary amount of purses. Freaking fights mostly TBA opponents, hand-picked guys that are announced about 2 weeks out from the fight. The guy's out of shape, doesn't just pretty much collecting a check, and comes to lay down for Gary Russell Jr. He's been in one real fight, maybe two. All right, I'll give him two real fights in his career. I'll give him credit for the Gonzalez fight, but Gonzalez is a hot and cold fighter, a little past it, but he's a good puncher. But he won the fight. Stylistically, it was a favorable matchup for Gary Russell Jr. But I still give him credit because he blew him out of there and knocked him out. But the guy doesn't want to do anything else. He fights once a year. Is just sitting on the shelf, hoping and praying that he's somehow going to get a big purse to fall in his lap. He already got overpaid for his last showcase against Patrick Hyland. Now he expects to get more fighting his mandatory challenger, who is not a key name in boxing. You are what you're worth in this game. And if you're not going to compete, if you're not going to be active, if you're not going to try to fight the best available opponents out there, or the biggest names out there, then you really can't expect to get the type of purses that you want, or even expect when it comes to unification fights or fighting big name opponents. These guys just don't get it, man. This is the result of the PBC overpaying fighters, and now the guys don't want to fight. They duck legends. They expect to be paid more than they're worth. This is what you get, man, when you spoil fighters like Al Heyman has been spoiling his fighters for the past few years, ever since he got this shitload of money to pretty much just blow it away. How do you blow over $500,000 in less than 3 years? That's just unbelievable. And now it looks like the ship is sinking. It's pretty much over. Yeah, they'll have their few shows here and there, but those days of getting $1 million to fight bombs for showcases are long gone. The purses are coming back to reality, and all of a sudden these guys don't want to fight because they're not getting the fights that they're not getting the money that they want, or the dates are dwindling, for whatever reason. And publicly, Gary Russell and many others won't bitch at Heyman. They won't complain on him. But behind the scenes, according to people in boxing, there's a lot of barking going on with the Heyman crew. A lot of complaining, a lot of bitching about not being active, about not being paid about what they expect to get paid. And I just can't wait till somebody chin checks Gary Russell. I'm sick of him, tired of him. His career is a joke. He's done jack shit in his career. Got exposed in his first real fight against Lomachenko. Somehow got a draw in that fight. It's unbelievable. I mean, he got his ass whooped, and one judge actually called it a draw. It's crazy. But man, somebody needs to do boxing a favor and drop this chump, Gary Russell Jr. He's not much anyways. Talented, but he'll never be a star. Doesn't really love boxing, doesn't really follow the sport, doesn't have that star personality. Just a good fighter with some talent, but nothing special. But hopefully someone better coming up through the rankings can just get into position to fight for his title and just drop him and get rid of him in boxing. Don't need any more of those guys who are being businessmen when they haven't done jack shit in their fucking careers. This is Boxing Truth. I'm out.